Hey everyone, and welcome back to another severe storm filmer weather forecast. In this forecast, we have a very active weather pattern to talk about, so let's jump right in. With first taking a look at our jet stream across the United States, you notice here how it's pretty wavy. However, there's no big storm systems riding it right now, so it's pretty quiet generally across the entire country. An exception would be the northwestern United States, where they're on the backside of an atmospheric river and they're getting pounded with heavy rain, wind, and mountain snow. But other than that, it's not active across the country. And then as we take it into the daytime hours tomorrow, it's going to be rather quiet as well. However, if you live in the Great Lakes, say, Michigan, back down towards Ohio, Kentucky, back in towards West Virginia, you could have some scattered rain showers and gusty winds. It's not going to be anything you guys can't handle, but there could certainly be a few raindrops coming home from work. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Wednesday, this is when we maybe get the ingredients for a much bigger storm system, all right? One storm system here, another one up here. These two are going to merge as we head into the daytime hours on Thursday. You notice how it's in the southwestern United States, but there is a little shortwave that tries to embed itself within the action as we headed towards Thursday further east. So this should be monitored for the possibility maybe of there being a threat for maybe some localized severe storms. That's going to be something to watch out for. Not overly concerned, but again, just something to certainly watch out for. And then the main piece of energy kicks into gear as we headed towards Friday, especially Friday night, all right? It's mainly Friday night where I'm concerned for the potential of severe weather and maybe even significant severe weather if we can get enough instability. Because notice here, your high pressure system is here. This is 2 a.m. on Saturday morning in the eastern United States. Moisture is getting flung very far to the north, all right? You can see how the warm front's kind of draped like this, how the cold front's draped like this. There is almost certainly going to be a threat of severe weather along this cold front in this general area, all right? And along the warm front, too, there could certainly be some storms across this area, too. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on as we headed towards Friday night to Saturday. Again, this is the area to watch out for if you're looking for severe storms Friday night into Saturday, all right? That's where the best ingredients overlap with moisture and dynamics. And then as we take it into Saturday afternoon, the actual cold front begins to sweep through the Great Lakes, all right? Notice the timing, though. Saturday afternoon and evening, we still have moisture pumping north into the Gulf, into the Ohio Valley. I could see a decent line of thunderstorms and low top showers along this boundary here, all right? There's going to be a really, really strong, robust jet streak, according to this model, that streaks across Ohio back towards Arkansas, and that is just going to really enhance the lift. So this is something to watch out for along this Arctic cold front. Some sort of quasi-linear convective system could certainly come out of that. But then the bigger thing is that on the backside of this whole thing as we headed towards Sunday, this is possibly going to undergo bombogenesis, all right? It's a possibility, not as, certain as the other one, but it's a possibility right now and will need to be watched. One thing's for certain, though, this will at the least be a near sub 90-85 millibar low with very strong winds pumping in on the backside of this. We could be talking anywhere from 45 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, pretty much like the last storm system we had across this area, except, like I said before, it was a bomb cyclone, all right? This can do it as well, so we're just going to need to monitor trends. In addition to that, moisture still coming out of the south. Instability will be very limited on Sunday, much like the last couple of days. But like I said before, forcing could be strong enough to where we could get a very robust low top line of convective showers and thunderstorms even as we head up towards New England, maybe up towards Maine. Either way, along that cold front is going to be very windy, and we're going to have a very big burst of heavy rain, and on the backside of that whole thing, it is going to get wild and windy as well. All right, so now that we're done taking a look at the overall evolution of the jet stream, let's take a more simplistic look at our precipitation trends over the course of the next 7 days. All right, as we take it into the daytime hours tomorrow, again, like I said before, could have some scattered rain showers across the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, in addition to maybe some snow for a time across Michigan and southern Ontario. We have an atmospheric river still pounding areas of the northwest. But then as we head into the day on Wednesday, again, this is when we got to start watching two pieces of energy, one down here and one up here. This is going to be a really crucial thing. When these merge, like I said before, there's going to be a big stirring mechanism in the atmosphere that gets a storm system going, all right? This is going to be a rather strong low-pressure system. It's going to be firmly strong, not super strong, but it's going to be strong enough to cause problems, all right? There's going to be... This is kind of a weird low-pressure system, all right? This is low-pressure system 1. This is low-pressure system 2. This is kind of low-pressure system 3. It's kind of weird on this model, but let me just put it into simplistic terms here, all right? Here's your warm front, and here's your cold front, all right? The cold front is the area to watch out for the possibility of strong to severe thunderstorms, all right? Thursday, I think there could be a marginal risk across the area I just highlighted. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Friday, notice here how that lifts off towards the north. I do want to emphasize clearly as we headed towards early Friday morning, some of those thunderstorms could try to make a run at Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky along that initial surface warm front. I think it's actually more so like this, apologies. But there could certainly be some elevated thunderstorms along that, some hail, maybe some heavy rain, not really looking at any severe weather. But then as we take it in towards late Friday night and into Saturday, this is when, again, like I said before, we have to watch out for a more robust severe weather threat. All right, round 1 is going to, like I said before, be mainly confined back here, over here to areas of the Mississippi Valley, Missouri Valley, and back down towards Louisiana, where all hazards of severe weather will be possible. Tornadoes will be possible into early Saturday morning. And then round 2, notice the break there. We might get a little peak of sun. That can, bring out the sun a little bit, and we can get some instability. There's likely going to be a really, really strong line of thunderstorms and showers, like I mentioned, with that strong jet streak across Ohio, Kentucky, maybe even Tennessee extending south. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there. Again, it might not be, convectively driven depending on instability, but at the least it's going to be a rainy and very windy band of rain. So please make sure you're paying attention to that. And then as we headed towards Sunday, it is just looking like a very windy and snowy mess across this entire area here. There's going to be lake effect firing up for the Great Lakes regions. If you live in the Great Lakes regions, get ready for the possibility of more blizzard conditions, except a bit further to the east than what the last storm system brought, okay? I also want to emphasize, like I said before, as we head in towards Sunday afternoon, there could be a low-top squall line that moves across New England and Maine. All right, I can rewind it here, all right? It's actually more so early Sunday morning, but either way, this storm system is going to be strong enough to where it's going to pack a punch, all right? It's going to be windy as all heck on the backside of this, probably 50-plus miles per hour gusts for a lot of people. There's probably going to be widespread wind advisories, widespread high wind warnings, maybe even worse than the last storm system for some people, all right? For a lot of the people, it'll be a little bit of the same. So this is certainly going to be a storm system that's going to get your attention as we headed towards late this weekend and towards especially this weekend. And now let's take a peek at our temperatures over the course of the next week or so, all right? As we take it in towards tomorrow, it's going to be rather mellow across much of the country, all right? Again, in terms of conditions, it's going to be rather, chilly, but average temperatures for them this time of year up there. Notice down here, though, where that warmer air is pumping in, you could have temperatures getting into the 70s across Florida, all the way extending west into Texas. Meanwhile, like I said before, there's the brink of that warm air. That warm front's going to stay further to the south And you notice as we take it into the daytime hours on Wednesday, how that warm lobe of air starts to make a little tricky appearance across the central and northern plains. All right, look at that, getting into the 50s in South Dakota, the 40s in North Dakota, which is pretty above average for this time of year, and near 90 for some areas in Texas. That is just record-breaking heat for this time of year. Pretty much you could call it a heat wave for January down there. And notice as we take it into the daytime hours on Thursday, how that warm air begins to really spread to the north. And I mean really spread. All right, warm front setup here, cold front setup here. All right, again, there could be some pretty strong thunderstorms Thursday night along that boundary further to the east, but those temperatures are going to be record-breaking for a lot of folks down in the south. And then as we head in towards Friday afternoon, notice how that warm, mild air gets up into the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and extends back all towards the southern plains. Notice here we stay cold across the northern plains, back in towards the northeast, where temperatures will likely be in the upper 30s and low 40s generally. There could be certainly some areas that get below freezing, though. And then you can see where the cold air is, all right? As we head in towards Saturday afternoon and evening, this is when this big-time system sets up, all right? This is probably going to be an area of circulation. I could see it without, a general surface map, all right? The cold front is right here. There are temperatures in the 50s near 60 along this boundary, and behind it, it's in the 30s immediately, all right? This is why I said this cold front is going to be such a slap in the face across this general area, especially because, this is going to be a huge drop in temperature, all right? And notice here, you could even have a 24-hour or less, maybe even a 12-hour drop of temperature, maybe, 30 to 40 degrees across these areas, much like we've had with the last storm system, all right? And with the winds kicking up, it's certainly not going to feel that great, all right? And you notice as we head into Sunday afternoon and evening, those temperatures are going to stay cold across these areas, all right? It's rather normal January weather for this time of year, but it's, like I said before, it's just not going to feel good with that January wind in those areas. And last but not least, taking a look at our wind gusts over the course of the next 7 days. They're going to be pretty prevalent. All right, as we take it into the system tomorrow, all right, not going to be too noticeable wind gusts. It's going to be rather breezy, though, all right? I can see gusts at times approaching 30 miles an hour across the Ohio Valley, especially in any of those rain showers. In the mountains, widespread 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. Higher will be possible in the mountains. Could see triple-digit wind gusts in the mountains. That's certainly something to keep an eye on there. 40 mile per hour wind gusts with that atmospheric river in the northwestern United States. The wind gusts take a step back as we head in towards Wednesday, in my opinion, but Thursday, they're coming back with a roar, all right? Like I said before, next storm system's ejecting over the Rocky Mountains. Notice here, 35 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts, a lot of areas, all right? Central and southern plains all the way back into the Ohio Valley, we could be dealing with some very gusty conditions starting Thursday. And then as we head in towards Friday, notice here, still pretty gusty across, the plain states, all right? This is the second piece of energy with gusts of 35 miles per hour in the eastern United States. But then watch this. As we head towards Saturday evening, there is a huge uptick in those wind gusts, all right? That is because the storm system will be rapidly deepening. Like I said before, a bomb cyclone I'm not ruling out, much like the system last week. But then watch what happens with this. The winds are tearing as we headed towards Sunday now on this model, all right? Great Lakes, back down and towards the upper Ohio Valley, back and towards the northeast. You could be talking about gusts 55 plus miles per hour, especially in this localized corridor right here where the higher elevations are. Either way, this big circle region will have to worry about the potential of perhaps 45 to 50 plus mile per hour wind gusts with blowing snow in this corridor as we head through the daytime hours on Sunday. It's just going to be an absolute mess. Blizzard conditions are possible where the snow persists, and it certainly isn't looking good around those areas as we headed towards Sunday. Alright, folks, it has been great to make another video. Hopefully you guys got some information out of this. Stay safe. Big storm system coming.